Hi, I'm Sammy Murrian and I write about film and television for Parade magazine. So this weekend, I had two options. I could either go see this movie about someone being sexually tortured for 2 hours, or I could go see Baywatch. So, I chose this movie. And, I mean, let's face it, I'm sure that Baywatch movie is its own unique brand of sexual torture anyway. And you know what? I'm really glad that I saw Berlin Syndrome because it's pretty great. In Berlin Syndrome, Teresa Palmer stars as Claire, an Australian tourist who is traveling through Berlin when she meets a teacher named Andy, who is played by Max Reimold. The two of them instantly have physical chemistry. They are very attracted to each other. They have super hot, animalistic sex. Then Claire realizes that she has been locked in Andy's apartment. In short, Andy has kidnapped Claire. She is his prisoner, and he sexually tortures her and has no intention of ever letting her go. So, this is a woman in captivity movie, of which we have seen, roughly 1 billion in the history of movies. This is not the first movie about a woman in captivity. However, this movie is pretty unique, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that it was made by a woman. This film is directed by Kate Shortland, an Australian filmmaker, and this is based on a novel by Melanie Justin, and the screenplay here is by Sean Grant. Historically, movies about women in captivity usually go one of two ways. It's either, like a suspense thriller, like just about the suspense and how is she going to figure out how to get out of here? Is she going to figure out how to get out of here? And there is some of that in this movie. This movie is a thriller. The other way that this type of story is usually treated in film, historically, is the nastier way. The more vile way. Often movies about women in captivity really are about this, a woman's humiliation, her torture, and, turn that into spectacle. I'm not going to say this movie's not hard to watch. This movie is hard to watch. So handle with care, with that warning. I will also say that this movie absolutely does not cross any lines. I'm usually the first person to turn off a movie if I get myself turned off by, what I feel is like an irresponsible exploitation of a woman or sexual violence or anything like that on screen. I will turn on a movie like that if I feel like, it's in poor taste. This is not in poor taste, and this does not cross any lines. It's tough to watch, though. So while this movie is a thriller and there is suspense, and, it is hard to watch, and there are scenes of torture and imprisonment, what Kate Shortland is far more interested in here is these characters and what's going on inside these characters, how this situation affects these characters. The title is obviously a play on Stockholm Syndrome, and, in a situation like this, it's kind of like the stages of grief. You go through, like, rage, sadness, and eventually just, like, acceptance and submission. That's definitely a part of this. I mean, anybody who's ever been in an unhealthy, possessive relationship will find a lot of truth here. Hopefully nobody watching this movie has ever been in anything quite this heightened. But, I think that most females and a lot of boys have been in unhealthy, possessive relationships. And though this movie is, it's in the extreme, it is full of truth. It really helps Kate Shortland's movie out a lot that she's got two absolutely amazing actors in this film. There are other characters in this movie, but there are long stretches where it's just like a two-hander. This movie does open up and there are other characters. You don't just spend the time in this room or anything. I'm not going to give anything more than that away. A lot of this movie, it's just these two people. Let's start with Teresa Palmer. She is splendid in this movie. It's taken me a really long time to form a strong opinion about Teresa Palmer, and I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that she's been in movies that I don't like. Like, she was in Knight of Cups, which I think was just proof that Terrence Malick is going through early onset dementia. She was in one of those Nicholas Sparks movies, I don't know, it was like A Walk to Remember, or Dear John, or The Notebook, or Heaven's Gate. I don't know what the hell it was called. I've never made it all the way through one of those movies. I started getting a stronger opinion on Teresa Palmer when I saw Lights Out, which was a horror movie that didn't really scare me at all, but I thought worked really well as like a mother-daughter drama. Teresa Palmer is terrific in that movie, and so is Maria Bello, and they have this great, damaged mother-daughter dynamic. And then I saw Hacksaw Ridge, which I just love. I love that movie, and I love her in it. And now there's this, which hopefully will be a serious calling card for Teresa Palmer in Hollywood. I mean, she's been in Hollywood movies for about a decade now. She's been in many movies, though, where she's just like the girlfriend, the love interest. It's about time that Teresa Palmer forms her own identity in Hollywood, because she's tremendously talented. She's extraordinary in this movie. The way that she portrays these stages of being kidnapped and what she goes through, and it's very human. I actually was fortunate enough to see Teresa Palmer speak about this movie when I saw it yesterday. I saw a screening of this at my beloved ArcLight Hollywood, and she did a Q&A for a half an hour after this movie, and she was just great. She has a very strong personality. She's very extroverted and big and goofy. She's absolutely beautiful. She's very extroverted and very big. She's complete opposite of the character that she plays in this film. Especially after seeing this movie and after seeing her speak, I have no doubts that Teresa Palmer is the real deal. I can't wait to see where her career goes after this. She's been in, many vanilla Hollywood movies that just didn't leave that much of an impression, but she's got the chops. I also have to mention Max Reinhardt, who is German. I have not seen him in anything before this. He's been in several German films. I don't watch that many German films. I watch some, but I don't watch that many. He's also just terrific here. I mean, this isn't just a black and white monster. I mean, he does monstrous, horrible, frankly, utterly unforgivable things. This is also a fully fleshed out human. It's really good writing and a really good performance from this guy, and hopefully both of these actors can use this movie as a calling card and get a lot of interesting material and go on with very interesting careers, because they're both obviously quite talented. I hope that this movie serves as a calling card for a lot of people involved in it, actually, behind the camera as well. This movie is really well edited. I loved the editing of this movie. At times, it's really tense and exact, and it's very much a thriller. And then at times, this movie is very dreamy and exploratory. Jack Hutchings edited this movie. Brian E. Marks did the music for this movie. I really liked the music for this movie. Again, very dreamy, a lot of strings, very distinct. This movie's really well written. I know I've said that, but I'm going to say it again. It made me want to read the book. I have not read the book. I don't know how much of it is the screenplay, how much of it is from the book. But from the psychology, with all of its shades of gray, to the dialogue, to the pacing of the film, the writing is excellent. And I'm really glad that I saw this with an audience, because this movie is really funny at times. It's like got this string of pitch black humor running through it. I mean, the blackest of black humor. This is a very dark, sick movie. It is laugh out loud funny a few times throughout. I'm glad I saw this with a full audience, because I might have been worried that I was just a sicko for laughing. Again, I think that my experience of watching this film was heightened a little bit by seeing it with an audience. This is a good audience movie, just because it's so intense and it's so tight. My number might seem a little bit high here. I'm gonna give Berlin Syndrome a 9 out of 10. I loved this movie. I'm not going to say that I enjoyed this movie. I would not go that far because, like I said, at times it's just super hard to watch and it's disturbing and it's gross. I loved this movie. I loved the psychology of it. The filmmaking craft is on point in pretty much every regard. And these two performances are sensational. So definitely see this movie. Definitely see it. I mean, you might be surprised that you can get through a movie with this kind of subject matter. I mean, I think this movie is enlightening, and I think that in no way does this movie step over any lines, or it's just gross for the sake of being gross. This is not torture porn. This is a good movie. So I recommend that you see it, maybe even if you think that you might be turned off by this kind of subject matter. It's very well handled. This movie is in a limited theatrical release right now. It would be ideal to see this with an audience like I did. I'm certainly grateful for that. It's also on VOD already, but yeah, see this movie. If you see one new release this week, see this. This is actually the only film released this week that has a fresh rating on the tomato meter. For those of you who follow Rotten Tomatoes and know what that means, this is the only movie released this week that is, in general, getting positive reviews. You know, you've got the option of seeing that dopey Pirates movie, or that wretched-looking Baywatch movie, or this. And this movie's pretty great. You guys, thank you so much, as always, for tuning into my channel. I appreciate your support so much. Please follow my writing on parade.com. It is parade.com/member/Samuel Murrian. I'm spending most of my time writing these days. I have several amazing interviews coming out over the next few days. I've interviewed some incredible people, and yeah, I put a lot of time into my writing, so please follow me on Parade. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook, keep up with my channel. I really appreciate the support. If you like what you see, please subscribe. Take care of yourselves and be well, everybody. Bye!